I love fairies, and I'm talking about the real fairies. I'm talking about what I call the historical fairies, the fairies from tales from centuries ago about little bastards stealing babies, curdling milk, stripping the udders of goats, and just generally being little shits. These are the fairies I love because they are without a doubt little goblins of the fantasy world. And Disney Fairies seems to perfectly and strangely encapsulate all the things I love about fairies. Are they cute? Yes. Are they pretty? Yes. Are they magical? Yes. But are they little shits who can cause devastating circumstances in our real world, in this case on our climate? Abso-fucking-lutely. In fact, the Disney fairies kind of remind me of the fairies on A Midsummer Night's Dreams, except they do give a little more cares about the world we live in, but that doesn't mean, according to their lore, that our world can't be affected by their shenanigans. And the shenanigans of one fairy in particular, that little bitch that you love and I love, Tinker Miss Pris Bell. Now, if you know Tinkerbell, you know that she's the star of the Disney Fairies movies, and I want to talk about the Disney Fairies movies, a little bit of background about them. So, during the 2000s, Disney Animation Studios was kind of in the shitter. And the only thing they were turning out that was notable is these just god-awful direct-to-video sequels of their classic films. And you were getting shit like The Hunchback of Notre Dame 2, and Brother Bear 2, and Tarzan and Jane, and just progressively worse and worse direct-to-video animated sequels that were made specifically to just get as much money as possible. I call them toddler fodder because this is made just for young children. Let's churn these out as fast as we can at the lowest quality possible. And people were kind of losing faith in Disney Animation Studios. And at that point, John Lasseter of Pixar fame became Disney's CEO. And here's a fun fact about John Lasseter. His favorite movie growing up as a kid is Disney's Dumbo. And Disney's Dumbo was on the so-called proverbial chopping block to be made into this terrible, terrible, abysmally bad direct-to-video sequel. And John Lasseter put his foot down and said, that is quite enough. Now, we are going to start making original content that harkens back to our roots, but is also new and original and fresh. And that is when the Disney Fairies movies come out. Now, Frozen is kind of given the credit for like jump-starting the Disney's new renaissance. That and Tangled. But there is another wintry themed movie that I believe kicked off the Disney Renaissance period, and I want to talk about it, and it is a snowy ass hill that I will die on, and that is Disney Fairies: The Secret of the Wings. Now, this movie is, I think, the third movie in the Disney Fairies movie series, and it is my favorite. Now, I don't think the story is as strong as the Tinkerbell movie, the original film in this series, or like The Great Fairy Rescue, which I think is the strongest story as far as storytelling go. In fact, The Secret of the Wings is just the Parent Trap with Christmas fairies. That's what it is. But this is my favorite of the Disney Fairy movies because it was my kid's favorite movie when she was a toddler. And we watched this a lot. We got the DVD at the thrift store. We broke it because we watched it so many times. It was one of those movies my toddler had to watch before she went to bed. It was just our thing. And as I watched it, I really got into the Disney Fairy movies, and I really came to enjoy them. And I really want to talk about Secret of the Wings because it's my favorite. It's a very seasonal movie like Frozen. It doesn't really have anything to do with any particular holiday, but it's fun to put on during the holidays because it has a lot of ice and snow and winter shenanigans, and I really enjoy it. So, as we're told by a song in the intro to Secret of the Wings, I love the songs in the Disney Fairy movies. They go from being very kind of Celtic Enya, um, kind of very kind of folksy in a like medieval Europe kind of way, to very progressively pop songs. I think as its viewership of like little girls grew up. Even though these movies are so good, they can be enjoyed by everyone, even though it does target little girls. Which brings me to my next point. As we are introduced to Tinkerbell's friends, we see Terrence, her on-again, off-again boyfriend. And every time I see Terrence, I'm like, Terrence who? Because Tinkerbell's relationships with her girlfriends are far stronger and more interesting than they will ever be with Terrence. And I believe Terrence, I'm not saying Terrence is completely uninteresting, but he does feel like he was made for the particular role of being this female lead's boyfriend. He's very much the kin to her Barbie, while Tinkerbell's girlfriends are very varied and interesting on their own. Hell, Fawn even has her own movie, The Secret of the Never Beast. Like, Tinkerbell's, like, girlfriends, and as we soon to learn, sister, are her relationships with them, and them on their own, are far more interesting than any romantic relationship she has with a boy. And one of the reasons is because these movies target young girls, and they're too young for romantic relationships, and they rely on friendships as a basis for relationships, and that is why these movies are made for them. And that's true, but in the long run, like, the character who is made specifically for Tink's boyfriend is, I find, very boring. I might do a video on Terrence, the Cocoam of Fairyland, but that'll come later on. So, as the song tells us, it introduces us to Tink and her friends, and it's telling us how the fairies control the seasons, and then we see Tinkerbell, and she is talking to my favorite gay husbands, Bobble and Clank, her gay roommates, who I adore. And she's like, why do warm fairies, which she is, never go to the winter woods, which is where the winter fairies live? And they explain to Tinkerbell that warm fairies like them would freeze to death. Now, one of the criticisms about these movies is Tinkerbell always saves Pixie Hollow, which is where they all live, even though they're fairies and not pixies. Tinkerbell always solves the fairy problem she creates, and I agree. However, a lot like in Frosty the Snowman, like, these fairies come to be as fully formed adults, and they're expected by their society to have adult experience, but they don't. And there is no, like, institutions, like, unlike Frosty the Snowman, where he is just this supernatural monster that comes to be in our world, in Fairyland, it is an established civilization. But in Pixie Hollow, there's no public schools. The libraries, as you will see, are shit and maintained by bookworms, which systematically eat the books. It's almost like this monarchy of Pixie Hollow doesn't want its citizens to be educated. Dun dun dun! That doesn't sound familiar at all. So what I'm saying is there's no, like, public school for fairies, and there very much should be, because in every movie, Tinkerbell is just fucking with the physics of this world. Another thing I wanted to talk about is how I love the artistry of this movie and how it's perfectly paired with this storytelling in it. I'm playing A Dance with the Sugar Plum Fairy, and it is in Disney's Fantasia with the Winter Fairies. And the Winter Fairies in this movie are very much based on that animated sequence from Fantasia, and I love that. And that's a great way of this movie harkening back to Disney's roots. I also love how this movie shows instead of tells. And one thing is when Fawn is telling Tinkerbell, and of course there's a little telling because this movie targets young children, but it shows very nicely, like, Fawn is the animal fairy. She's the animal whisperer, and she's coaxing the animals into the winter woods so they can grow their white winter coats or hibernate. And I'm like, that's a really clever way of, like, teaching kids about the seasons and ecologically. And I love the weasels. They, like, jump they jump in like the veil of snow that separates the winter woods from the summer fairyland, and they become white with little like ermine tails, and the little bunnies become snow bunnies, and it's so whimsical and magical. It's like when I watch it, I'm like, yeah, I'm watching a classic Disney movie. Like I had that very magical feeling that you get when you're watching a movie like Peter Pan or like Lady and the Tramp. You're like, yeah, this is so magical. So, of course, they tell Tinkerbell not to go in the snow, and her wings start sparkling. Sparkle, sparkle, sparkle. And all the fairies start freaking out. They take her to a fairy doctor. There's this great trope they do where the patients progressively come to the nurse telling her there are problems, and she's like saying like, oh no, and she's poo-pooing, and she's like, that's not an emergency. That joke's done in Bluey. It's always really funny. Though I don't understand how getting eaten by a snapdragon or having your DNA altered by a psychic rainbow would be and not be an emergency, but Tinkerbell's wings and their bedazzlement is. But whatever. Anyway, Tinkerbell's explaining to her friends how the Winter Woods were calling to her, and I love how Tinkerbell's friends, like, know she's crazy, but they love her anyway, and I've never feel more seen than in this, fairy movie. So, Tinkerbell goes and makes her winter clothes, and it's adorable. Like, she has this little montage of, like, lining it with thistledown, and it's so cute. And I want to talk about what I call fairy fits. Now, this is the fits of, like, the fairies in this movie. I want to talk about, like, the Lord of Autumn. He looks like a character on The Fifth Element, or he looks like one of the kids on the Isle of the Lost, whose costumes Dizzy designed. And then there's, like, the Lady of Spring and her side bitch. And they look like hot Bette Midler. I mean, yes. And I also love how, so there's this rivalry and like paranoia going on between what's called the warm fairies and the winter fairies. And it came from this forbidden love affair between Lord Mallory, who's the Lord of the Winter Fairies, and Queen Clarion, Processor, the Queen of the Summer Fairies. But every time I watch this, I'm like, but where is the torrid West Side Story, like, type affair between the Autumn and the Spring Fairies? Like, where is their Romeo and Juliet type story? They're very much the Hufflepuff and Ravenclaw of this world. They're the vastly more interesting, like, side tribes. They're like Wind Clan or River Clan up against like the Thunder Clan and Shadow Clan rivalry, which is far less interesting. Anyway, also I want to say that this movie could be a commentary on how, like, when you discourage diversity in a society, it backfires. You have less interesting ideas, you have less interesting outlooks, and less interesting perspectives in your society. For example, I think if, Queen Clarion or Lord Mallory had invited outsiders in, or at least their perspectives and ideas, they could have found Tinkerbell's solution far sooner, instead of being paranoid about this one incident that happened. And it's a pretty good commentary on human nature. And that's another really cool message about these movies, is it promotes Tinkerbell's new ideas. Like I say, she's a Sagittarian lady. She has these like new ideas, new ways of seeing things. But it doesn't poo-poo or like condescend to Queen Clarion's like old, very Saturn-esque rule. Like, it very much says we need to hearken back to our elders and their traditions and like their wisdom, but we also need to look towards the innovations of the future. And I like that. That's a great message. Usually when you have a movie, and especially a children's movie, it either takes the side of the elder or the youth. It's usually not trying to find that balance, and that's what I love about these movies. It very much has that message. So then we see Tinkerbell and she tells Bobble and Clank that she's off. And Bobble and Clank in this movie are very much like the Virgo and the Pisces friend, who are like always trying to talk the Sagittarian friend down from whatever crazy shit she's just dreamed up. And again, I feel so seen in this movie. But the Tinkerbell gets in one of these cute baskets that are carried by snowy owls to the winter woods. And let me tell you, this would make the hottest ride at Walt Disney World. You look me in the eye and tell me it would not. It's like the owls, and you're in like the sky lift, and this giant owl is just carrying you over Pixie Hollow, and you're seeing like the pirate ships, and you're seeing like Neverland, and then you're seeing like all the different seasons. It's just like, it's like when the cubs are like running from the hyenas in the Elephant Graveyard and the Lion King. Like Walt Disney World like just dropped the ball by not making an amusement park ride out of that. That would be fun as shit. Okay. So we see Lord Mallory, and he's fucking hot. He is Fairy Patrick Dempsey. I mean, he's Fairy David Duchovny. He is Fairy 1998 David Duchovny. This guy is hot. And then he sees the book that Tinkerbell got at the shit fairy library. And Lord Mallory looks at it, and Tinkerbell's like, don't be suspicious. Tinkerbell sneaks off, and she meets Dewey, and he's called the Keeper, and he's like the keeper of all fairy knowledge, and he like writes all the books, which seems like propaganda to me, considering he's best friends with Lord Mallory, but whatever. And they meet Dewey, and then they see him with Periwinkle, who is a girl fairy, a frost fairy. She's in charge of like frosting plants, and her wings glimmer along with Tinkerbell, Sparkle, Sparkle, Sparkle. And Lord Mallory explains that when a baby laugh, came from our world, it split in two, and that is how you get twin baby fairies. And I'm always like, Frosty and like Secret of the Wings, all these holiday movies are really like instructing me in how supernatural critters get it on. And I'm always like, why did they name her Periwinkle if she was born as a frost fairy? But whatever, we love not so subtle foreshadowing. I love Peri. She's so fun. Like, I expected her to either have a super flat personality or have a personality exactly like Tinkerbell's, and she's not. She's very much her own fairy. She does some things that are very much like her twin sister. Like, she puts the little puff balls on her shoes. I think that's cute. But she also like has her own like occupation as a frost fairy. She has her own life and her own friends. Her friends are super interesting. There's a glacier fairy. I love him. He's like this super meditative yogi fairy. There's Gliss and Spike. They're really funny. They're like a perky girl and her goth girlfriend. And then there's this himbo named Sled. And I love Sled's name because he hooks up with Rosetta at the end. And I can always say, she got plowed. Snow plowed. So then, of course, so Tinkerbell goes to Bobble and Clank, and she's like, you need to fix me a machine that will make winter in Summer Hollow. And they're like, gee, Tinkerbell, you don't ask for a lot, do you? Oh, once again, the Sagittarian friend. But they make it out of a cheese grater. I love how not only the climate and delicate ecosystem of Pixie Hollow, but by default, our world almost fell into a devastating climate apocalypse because of a fucking cheese grater. Those things are dangerous, okay? My hand don't lie. Alright. So, I want to say, so then, of course, the jig is up, and, the snow machine doesn't work, and Periwinkle starts to melt, and Lord Mallory shows up, and it's very much Parent Trap, and he's like, hello, Queen Clarion, and she's like, hello, Mallory, and I'm like, were y'all in the fucking Eagles together? And then, Queen Clarion tells this story to Tinkerbell, and she's like, Tinkerbell, you might not know this about me, but there was a time when I was a hoe. And I'm like, yeah, you sure were, girl. And so she tells Tinkerbell that she was once a hoe and she slept with Lord Mallory. And that's just a joke, of course. But it's based on this very funny song. It's called Your Mom Was a Hoe. I can't remember the it's a satire song called Your Mom Was a Hoe, and it's by this satirical artist on YouTube, and I'll link her. I can't remember her name right now, but I will link her. And I want to say this is better than The Parent Trap because Queen Clarion and Lord Mallory were doing the best they thought they could by their people and by their children. I'm calling Tinkerbell and Periwinkle their kids because they treat them like their daughters, and they were doing the best they could by them, unlike the parents on The Parent Trap who were just damn selfish and make me mad. And it's a refreshing ship. Like, they're very respectful. So the cheese grater gets crashed by Lord Mallory's owl, who is so cool, and I love her crystals. I also love how this movie makes the owls sexually dimorphic, as they are in the wild. Good job, Secret of the Wings. Looking at you, Frozen, to make your animals more biologically accurate. So the cheese grater snow machine gets caught in the stream, and of course the allegory is like the thing Lord Mallory did to try to protect the people he loved is the thing this is undoing because we had success with Finding Nemo, and damn it, Disney's never going to use another storyline for the rest of time. So the cheese grater goes off, and Periwinkle assembles her frost fairies. It's like Fairy Avengers assemble, and they all fly and frost Pixie Hollow and the magic pixie dust tree. And that is what saves it, because frost encapsulates water to protect the plant. And I'm like, good job, movie. Combining fantasy, but not completely condescending to science. I really love that. Let's hope we don't walk that back in the Great Pixie Rescue. And then Clarion and Mallory are like, hey guys, guess what? We're together. And all the fairies are like, please ship it. And there's this really cute epilogue. And they're like, all the fairies can live together now. And there's this cute epilogue. Rosetta gets with Sled. The nerdy fairy from the library meets his hero, the keeper. And everyone lives happily ever after. So, guys, I want y'all to let me know what animated sequels you love. I'm thinking of starting a new series called The Good, the Bad, and the Sequel about animated sequels I love, or any sequels you love. So let me know, and please like, share, and subscribe. Happy holidays.